Excuse me, sir. You there? Would you like to game? Then game we shall. What is going on, guys? It's Mikey Mads, and I'm finally in the PTR 2.1.2. I'm going to be covering the Demon Hunter and some of the changes that have come to the Demon Hunter. Now, everything that I talk about today is not going to be 100% set in stone. Everything is still subject to change. However, I've had some people questioning and asking me if the changes to the Demon Hunter are good, bad, if it's a nerf, a buff, how I feel about it. So, hopefully I can bring you guys good content and keep you updated on all the classes. So, currently right now, in my opinion, I think the M6 changes are an overall buff. The sentries are not going to be the set it and forget it type playstyle where you can run around and do whatever you want while they do damage. You're going to have to be a little more involved, and they're only going to fire your spinders when you fire them. However, the M6 set has gotten a huge percent damage increase overall. I mean, it's just a massive damage buff, and if played right and played well, if utilized well, it's going to be an extremely good setup. So the 2-set bonus says your generator's elemental arrow, chakram, impale, multi-shot, and cluster arrow damage is increased by 40% for every active sentry. So every sentry you have down, all of those get 40% increased damage, and that's pretty insane. That's a lot of damage. The 4-set bonus, guys, says companion calls all companion types to your side, which is nothing new. That's always been that way, but it's a nice effect, so it's good they kept that. And the 6-set, guys, says sentries cast your hatred spender when you do and deal 100% increased damage. 100% increased damage, guys, on top of the 40% per sentry. That's just insane. I've seen crits anywhere from like 200 million to like 900 million, just depending on how many sentries and buffs and whatnot I have up. So, just to give you an idea of what kind of damage can be done, it's insane. So, like I said, I'm running a cold build. I'm actually using the Hellfire Amulet with Cold Weak passive, with Bane of the Trapped on that. Got cold damage here. Using the Enforcer Gem in my Ring of the Royal Grandeur, Bombardier's Rucksack for the extra sentries. And then I actually found an Ancient Unity, which is really nice for running around in Greater Rifts and trying stuff out, and I'm using the Bane of the Powerful in that. And I also would like to point out that Tasker and Theo's guys are not going to be as important anymore, considering they only fire when you do, your sentries that is, and Taskers are pretty much useless now on the Demon Hunter. It's kind of a bummer, because I know a lot of people spent some crazy amount of time farming for a good pair of Taskers. However, this kind of releases a little more build diversity and options for us. We can use Mage Fist in this slot. As for me right now, I'm using Frostburns, and I actually found a pretty decent pair. You can, what I typically do with my fire build, in which, by the way, fire build is pretty strong as well, I will use Marauder's Gloves with cooldown, crit chance, crit damage, and then I will use the Cinder Coat, and I have fire damage on that Cinder Coat as well as sentry damage, and the 3 sockets. So this allows me to actually fire my fire spinders much more frequently because the resource cost reduction on that is pretty decent. So if you wanted to run a fire build, it's pretty awesome. I actually do like it. Clearing T6, it's pretty good, and I really haven't tried it in a Greater Rift yet, but I also have these Spines of Seething Hatred here, and what's nice about this is this now makes your chakrams generate 4 hatred. So if you have any of these quivers whatsoever, try to save a decent one. I actually got a pretty good rolled one here. It's got the 20% attack speed, 10 crit, hatred regeneration, and it has a chakram damage. Ideally, I'd probably want sentry, but I'll take what I can get. And hatred regeneration is probably going to become a little more valuable now, since you're going to be spending your abilities and trying to keep up with your hatred. So anyways, let's get back to the other topic that I was talking about here. So that's just to give you guys a little bit of an idea. Oh yeah, and there's my that's my fire amulet setup. I actually found an Ancient Quartz necklace, and it's pretty good. And I use the Z Stone of Vengeance in that, since I'm not really using a slow usually when I run my fire build. But so something else I would like to note is that right now in the PTR, weapons are bugged. So when you craft a weapon, they actually always roll ancient stats. And ideally you would want to do this as soon as the patch comes out anyway. You want to try to save up right now before the PTR and before the game releases a patch. You're going to try to farm up as much mats as possible. So right now in live, you want to try to farm up as much mats as possible so you can basically craft as many weapons as you can, trying to get an ancient item right off the bat. That's where most of your damage is going to come from. Most people are running the Arcane Barb, and that allows people to do a huge amount of damage since it's a 2-handed crossbow, and it has really good average damage range. But I did the Unbound Bolt because I like the attack speed that bows do. This allows me to fire my generators a lot more often and generate more hatred, which is nice. And ideally, you would want probably 10% damage with the critical hit damage main stat and average damage increase. But I just went ahead and just took what I can get, kept the attack speed, just to play test and try some stuff out. So for the skills, guys, this setup is kind of kind of difficult to use at first, but once you get the hang of it, it's really nice. And this isn't the only way to run this build. I've seen some other build variants, and I'll be telling you what you could possibly switch out for that. So on my left click, guys, I'm using Entangling Shot with Heavy Burden. This is going to be your generator for this setup, and it helps you apply the slow, which gives you more bonus damage for your Cold of the Weak and your Bane of the Trapped. Some people like to use the Focus, especially if they're using the two-handed crossbow. Focus actually helps you generate more hatred per shot, but since I'm using another ability I'll be talking about here in a minute, I don't need to really worry about it. So on my right click, guys, I'm using Clutch Arrow Maelstrom. This is an insane skill. You fire this, it does a huge amount of burst damage, and then it releases 5 rockets per cluster arrow, and all those rockets go everywhere and just smack on everything, and it's just like so much damage. Is cool. So it's like an initial burst of damage, and then a wave of damage right after that. So it's really, really good. On my 1 key, guys, I'm using Smoke Screen with Lingering Fog. You could easily switch this out for Vault Tumble, and a lot of people like to use Vault Tumble, and then they like to use the Tactical Advantage passive. And the reason that is because the new Greater Rifts have really good density, and finding pylons is way more frequent, so you can actually run into like a Power Pylon, Channeling Pylon, or a Conduit Pylon, and you can always roll and just clear through it real quick. So that's the other option, but I'm just kind of running this setup like this, just testing some stuff out. So on my 2 key, guys, I'm using the Sentry Polar Station. Again, this is really nice just for having the AoE Cold Slow. It helps you proc that extra slow damage from all your abilities like Cold Weak, Bane of the Trapped. On my 3 key, guys, I'm using Preparation with Punishment. This is where your primary source of regeneration is going to come from on your hatred. So this is a really good skill. It's going to make it to where you can fire your cluster arrows more often, considering it's pretty much going to be your only damage dealing ability and spender. And then on my 4 key, guys, I have Wolf Companion, which is going to buff your damage as well as returning hatred to you on top of the preparations. This is a really good combo in conjunction, guys, and you can actually dish out some serious damage, and I'll be showing you that here in a second. So for my passives, guys, I'm using Steady Aim, I'm using Ballistics, since you're going to be using a huge amount of rockets, and it's all going to be cold damage based from your gear. It's really good. It's so good, you'll see here in a second. I'm using Ambush. Ambush is actually a really awesome skill now. Ambush is really strong. You deal 40% additional damage to enemies above 75% health. So because Ambush is going to allow you to have that huge initial amount of burst damage like you will with the setup in the new M6, Ambush is going to allow you to basically get 40% more damage out of it. So this is really, really good skill. On top of Steady Aim and Cold Weak, it's insane. And then my last passive, I'm using Custom Engineering. You could do Awareness here if you would like. However, Custom Engineering allows me to consistently keep sentries up more often, and I'm kind of enjoying it. So anyway, this build, like I said, is subject to change. There's nothing set in stone yet. Even with me, I'm still playtesting. I'm still trying to figure stuff out. So I'm not 100% on this, whether I want to keep it this way or not. So, enough talking and yapping. Let's get some gameplay in. How about that? As you can see, the burst is just really good with the setup. Okay, there's a little first mob density area there. Look at that. So you want to use that preparation to restore your hatred. You see all those rockets come out and hit that guy? It's really good. Okay. Time your smoke screens, you'll be alright. Okay. Now when you're using this cold build, you want to try your best to more or less get your sentries right up on the enemy. And if you're using the fire setup that I was talking about, it's actually quite the opposite. You want to try to lay your sentries as far away as possible so you get max damage from your Zaystone of Vengeance. So it just depends on what setup you're using. Alright, so we have a pylon coming up. There was a 685 million crit. Channeling, this is a really good pylon actually. So what this does, the new channeling, is just more or less let you spam skills over and over with no cooldowns at all. Pretty much did that before, but this is like 100% now. Really good pylon. Okay, so we're out of the channeling now. Boom. Conduit. So this is why people usually run the Vault Tumble. So they can clear through an area real fast. That'll hurt. There we go. Power pylon. That's like a 1 billion crit. That's crazy. 1 billion crit, you say?
Not enough hatred.
There we go. This is a Greater Rift 41, by the way. Alright, so now we have a Rift Guardian. Try to get a sentry on him. The sentries themselves still fire and do decent damage. Look at that damage, guys. I don't want to grab that pylon over there. I just want to show what kind of damage can be done here. It's pretty crazy, huh? Anyways, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching my content. I appreciate it. If you guys have any questions, comments, and/or concerns, or if you'd like to see a different class, just request it in the comments below. If you like, please comment, subscribe. And as always, I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much.